Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the first SwansCast match preview of the season going into 2024-2025. A little bit of a tricky opening day for Swansea City. We're going to head up to Middlesbrough, and I'm delighted to be joined by Tom from the Borough Breakdown. So welcome, Tom, and thanks for joining.
Thanks very much for having me.
It wasn't that long ago, actually, that we played you guys towards the end of last season, and it didn't go very well for us. That's why I'm saying a little bit of a difficult time. I do believe we've lost the last 4 games to you and have failed to win in about 6. So 2021, I think, under Steve Cooper was the last one. It's a little bit of a bogey team for us at the moment.
Oh, that'll be the kiss of death for us then. Anytime we've got some sort of record like that, and I mean, I suppose the other side of that, the reverse jinx to it. We were talking on our podcast the other day. We haven't won the first game of the season in 10 years. It was against Birmingham in 2014, the last time we won on the first game of the season. So that might bode well for you guys.
Well, I do hope so. I hope that maybe swings the odds in our favour a bit. But I do think it's going to be a tough game. Maybe it's one of them ones that neither team wants to lose. But we'll get into that a little bit in a minute. First of all, I already introduced you as Tom from the Borough Breakdown Podcast. But can you just let us know about what you do at the podcast and where we can find you?
Yep, so I'm one of the co-hosts on the Borough Breakdown podcast. We release a new episode every Sunday. And I mean, I always struggle with this bit. I think it's Borough_Breakdown on socials. But I'm sure if you search Borough Breakdown, you will be able to find us. And we've got a load of YouTube content as well, if you want to watch it rather than listen.
I'll have all the links in the video if you're watching this on YouTube anyway. So just check in the description below if you want to check out some of the Borough Breakdown stuff. Of course, I'm sure there'll be plenty of stuff about this match on there as well, specifically for any Swans fans that want to check that out. Touching on last season, I don't really want to go too in depth, but what were the expectations last season? And then how did it pan out? Like, did you finish the season in line with what you expected? Was it worse or perhaps a bit better than what you were expecting last year?
I think before last season, a lot of people were still very excited from the year before. The year before, we had Bor Breakdown absolutely on fire, Cameron Archer, Aaron Ramsey, Ryan Giles. The difference was with 3 of those players were on loan, and Bor Breakdown ended up leaving us. We ended up having to kind of transition last season and bring in permanent signings who were going to gel and be better for us in the future. I still do think we expected to start the season a bit better than we did. I think it took us about 7 or 8 games to actually get our first win. One of those was a horrendous away 1-1 draw with Sheffield Wednesday. And at that point, everyone was just kind of thinking, how can this get any worse? Is this it for Carrick? Is the kind of honeymoon period over? And we then went on to beat Southampton, picked up a bit from there. I said all the way through last season, I believed that was a team that was going to click just slightly too late, and it would be about March or April, and we would look unbeatable, and we would miss out on the playoffs. And unfortunately, I was right. We had a great run towards the end of the season. Latte Laugh, our striker, scored, I think it was 12 in 13 games, maybe. Like, outstanding return considering we had matches at the start of the season where he missed multiple one-on-ones and was maybe looking like he was a little bit too fast, if anything, because he was outrunning the ball and not getting himself into the best positions. And then he had a period out injured as well. Injuries took a toll in general last season, and it was horrendous for us. We had Darrell Lenihan and Tommy Smith both out with Achilles injuries for most of the season. Matt Clark had been out the season before with I believe it was a nerve injury in his back, and he kind of got thrown in at the deep end away at Leeds. And we had a lot of other important players out injured throughout that season as well. So the midpoint of the season, everyone was kind of saying about Carrick, like, look how well he's doing because he's getting a tune out of this squad, which is extremely depleted. Made it to the Carabao Cup semi-final. And then, like I say, we clicked towards the end of the season, probably a bit too late, but that's given us a lot of optimism coming into this season.
Looking at the end of the last season, then I saw the results. Probably what was it, like one loss in the last 12 games or something, something like that against the Leeds as well. So, and by one goal, definitely some good form to end the season off. And looking at your club friendlies actually as well, pre-season seems to have gone quite well for you. So, what changes have there been within the club over the summer, whether that's backroom or any play-in personnel?
You know what? Not many, and that's a real positive compared to the season before. There were two kind of major re-signings in that Michael Carrick has renewed his contract and Riley McGree has renewed his contract. Riley McGree was always a kind of interesting one because there was always talk around, is he actually happy here? Is he going to commit? And I was saying this on our podcast yesterday. I've been a Borough fan long enough that I can remember players who we thought were happy here and we thought would have committed. You look at the likes of Mark Viduka when we were in the Premier League, and then he left and joined one of our rivals in Newcastle. So it's really saying a lot to us now that players and the manager are really that invested in the club that they're willing to renew their contracts and kind of sign on for multi-year deals. Then in terms of transfers, we brought back Luke Ayling. He was with us from January last season and made that much of an impression. I believe it was 8 assists that he got in the last 5 or 6 months of the season. I think it was probably closer to 5 or 4. 8 assists, I believe it was. And he has obviously earned a new deal. When his contract expired with Leeds, there only looked like one likely destination for him because he'd bought in that time. And then we've brought in 2 other players this pre-season as well. We brought in Delano Bergzorg, who had a run at Huddersfield last season. Wasn't particularly well liked from Huddersfield fans, we would say. But I would be surprised if anyone from that relegation team was well liked. Apparently, he might have had an argument with some of the fans or something. I can't really remember too much, but the reviews weren't great. They were kind of saying he'll bring something to your team in terms of his dribbling and his skill, but he's going to be extremely frustrating to watch. I've been to 3 of the preseason games, and I can say that's 100% true. He will beat a man, then wait for him to catch up, then try and beat him again when you think the shot's on or the pass is on. So that's going to be entertaining for us this season. And we've also brought in Aidan Morris from Columbus Crew. I believe that deal was only a few million, maybe. But that was to strengthen our defensive midfield, essentially. And I've seen him play a few times in pre-season. The last game against Heerenveen, he looked really good because he came on for Johnny Howson as a first half substitute. Looks really, really good in the centre defensive midfield role. A lot of interceptions, and he's probably bringing something that we've needed in this formation for a couple of years. Really quite high energy as well. So I think people are not expecting the world of him, but they already kind of know what he's going to be about this season, and I can see him being a mainstay in our team if he can establish himself.
Brilliant. A couple of new additions then to see playing this year. So how do you think that will line up with what expectations you have this year, and where do you think you're going to be in regards to the league table come next May?
I think people are kind of cautiously optimistic with Borough this season. I don't think anyone's really thinking we're going to do automatic promotion or anything like that, but we are at least thinking playoffs. And I think those signings will help. Like I say, injuries were a big problem for us last season, so it is going to rely a lot on us keeping our squad fit as well. But it's looking better in that those signings haven't been made for the first team straight away. They are going to have to work their way in, and the first team has been extremely settled. That there is a couple of rumours, or a few rumours at the moment, and one of them's just broken today. So the one that's broken today, Micah Hamilton from Man City. Apparently, we are in advanced talks with him regarding a permanent move. That would include a buyback clause and sell-ons according to Fabrizio Romano. So I'm assuming that's quite close. But that he'll be an interesting signing. I think from what I've heard, he can play anywhere across the three behind the striker, and one of the places I probably would have looked to strengthen as a secondary priority would have been right wing, as we only have Isaiah Jones there really. So he'll be an interesting sign if we get him. Tommy Conway is another one from Bristol City. Apparently, a fair few teams are in for him at the moment, but apparently Borough are looking the most likely. That would really kind of help us out in the fact that our backup striker at the moment is Josh Coburn, who probably wouldn't have been in that situation last season if we could have landed all our striker targets. So he will offer something, and then Ryan Giles is the third one. Obviously, he's been at Borough before. Bit of a strange transfer, given that Hull have just signed him. But from what I've heard and what's been reported, Hull may need the money more than they need to hold on to Giles. So that is potentially one for later in the window. But if those are the three signings that are still to come, that is going to add an immense amount of quality to our team. And I predicted that Borough would finish fourth on our podcast, but those signings may swing my prediction a little bit further up. Whether that would be third or automatics, I don't know. But I would be really, really confident after those signings that we have a hell of a squad for the Championship.
It sounds a bit scary for the rest of the teams, I think, and very high hopes there. I mean, good luck, of course, but after this weekend, I hope you don't start too well, but maybe you can pick up afterwards. That Ryan Giles situation is a bit interesting. And so he's just signed for Hull on a permanent, and they're already looking to sell or loan him out.
So it's a bit of an interesting one. It might be loan with an obligation to buy, but essentially what happened with him
is that what they had when they loaned him in January?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so obviously Luton managed to get there and attract him before Borough last season. He didn't quite cut in the Premier League, got loaned out to Hull with an obligation to buy for 4 million, I think it was reported for. Then Hull have changed manager in that time. Every time Giles has played in pre-season, or I think the majority of the time, he's been left wing and not really kind of played in his favoured position. There's been different noises coming out of Hull, the chairman saying if he wants to go, he can go. I think it was their chief executive officer or something like that said, no, he's actually going to be part of the leadership group. Seems to be a lot of mixed signals, and I think they're maybe just trying to get as much out of Borough as they possibly can in regards to that. But I was reading some threads from Hull fans on Twitter a couple of days ago, and the general kind of vibe was that they don't have enough signings through the door yet, and they think that the transfer team at Hull is working with a very limited budget. So for me, it's going to come down to whoever's needs greatest. Is it going to be that Hull need the money so they'll cash in on him, or do Borough need Ryan Giles a little bit more? Because he was discussed as more of a luxury signing earlier in the window. But then one of our left backs, Alex Bangura, has just came down with a fairly serious Achilles injury. So we're down to Lucas Engel as our first choice left back, and then George McCormick, who's a youth player who's only really broken through this pre-season. So it could be that Borough's need for Ryan Giles is a little bit greater now. But it's going to be interesting to see how that one progresses.
Yeah, it doesn't shock me to hear Hull might be in some financial difficulties after the spending they had last year. So I think that was perhaps to be predicted. But okay, moving on. What sort of style of play do you expect to see from Middlesbrough this season, especially going into this game? And sort of how do you expect to set up going into this match?
We'll probably set up in a 4-2-3-1. That is what we played against here in Veen. So we'll probably be going with Dieng in goal, back four of Ayling, Rav van den Berg, Matt Clark, and Lucas Engel. Johnny Howson went off injured. First half, a substitute, as I mentioned earlier, so it's probably going to be Aidan Morris and Hayden Hackney in centre midfield. Then Riley McGree, Finn Azaz, and Isaiah Jones all playing behind Emmanuel Latte-Laff. In terms of style of play, it's not really any different to when you guys played us last season or the season before. It is very much still possession-based, trying to play out from the back, and being patient and kind of carving out our chances. We still do create a decent amount of chances. I think we've been towards the top of the table for chance creation over the last couple of seasons. Last season, not so much finishing them, but the chances were there. And I believe it should be fairly similar this season. And like I say, everyone's a lot more settled now. So it could just be that everyone's just a little bit better at doing their jobs this year than they were last year.
Another high possession game then, because that's our game plan, especially now under Luke Williams reintroducing it. I know when we played you the end of last season, we managed to get more possession up at your place, which probably a bit surprising because we were still in transition a little bit mid-season, changing our direction. I would expect us to be more comfortable with the ball now after a pre-season under him, but I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens on the weekend. Yeah, I mean, it's no good having 60% possession and losing 2-0, though. That's something that I hope we can improve from our end. But looking to do the damage for you then, who do you think, if you had to pick one player that is going to be the one that makes a difference for you in this game, who would that be?
Emmanuel Latte-Laff. Like I said earlier, he scored 12 and 13 towards the end of last season. I've watched him in pre-season and he looks like he's just got better and better. Extremely quick striker, low centre of gravity, good with the ball at his feet, but he's quite strong at holding it up as well, which, you'd expect that from someone a fair few inches taller than him. So I think he could be the difference maker in not even just this game, but a lot of Borough's games this season.
Player to watch for the season then, potentially. Anyone doing fantasy football, maybe that's a shout as well if you're unsure about other teams. Let me flip the question on his head then. Looking at our squad, who do you think worries Middlesbrough in regards to doing damage for us?
See, for Swansea, I've not kind of paid too much attention in pre-season, to be honest, and I haven't been paying attention to anyone other than Borough, really. So I don't want to offend any listeners with that. It's just
okay.
Being in a bubble. However, we were talking about it on our podcast yesterday, and Dana had mentioned that you guys had signed a Slovenian international striker, who really seemed like a good positive signing. So as soon as I heard the name, I was just like, scoring against us. Yeah, more than likely. So that's not based on anything other than a feeling there. But I feel like that probably is a very, very good pickup as a signing. And he's got the type of name where I could see it on a score sheet against Borough.
Zan Vipotnik, he went to the Euros with Slovenia. He's had 10 caps. We signed him on a free transfer from Bordeaux. Obviously, they've just got into a little bit of financial trouble, so sad to see that situation. But it looks like our scouting team perhaps capitalised on. We didn't necessarily take advantage of the club, but the contracts of a lot of their players, I believe, obviously were redundant, and they ended up being free transfers. So they had to move quick, I'd imagine, to get it. But I didn't know much about it myself, but it does seem from people who are more in the know about himself as a player do seem to be calling it a bit of a coup for Swansea. So time will tell. We haven't seen him play. He was only announced or revealed to the fans at our last friendly. So whether he'll feature, I'm not sure, because he would have only just joined up with the squad. Maybe he'll be on the bench. I'd be shocked if he's perhaps thrown straight into it, but who knows? He perhaps was already up to speed, and we'll have to wait and see. But one that is definitely exciting for Swansea fans. Okay, so that's pretty much all I wanted to ask you today, but I do like to end on a little bit more of a less serious question, if you like, about the season, about the clubs, but still quite interesting to hear other people's views. I change the question every time we do these videos. If I meet again later in the season for the reverse fixture, I'll think of another one. But this season we're going for, what has been your best ever away day experience?
Ooh, I've got a couple from the last couple of years, and it's hard to to pick between the two. So I had one where it was the FA Cup match at Old Trafford against Man United. 10,000 Borough fans on that away end, and obviously we ended up with a win on penalties, which was a great feeling. And it was the day before my birthday, so it kind of took some topping. And then the one before that would have been Sheffield United, not last season, the season before. I went to Bramall Lane, having never been there before. We came back from 1-0 down to win 3-1. And at that point, it just felt like everything had aligned and we were going up that season. So if I had to pick between one of those two, it's probably the Man United, but Sheffield United would be a close second.
Brilliant. Sounds like brilliant birthday present to be beating Man United the day before your birthday in the Cup. So one to enjoy for sure. Thanks for your time though, Tom. If you can just remind everyone where they can find you and the Borough Breakdown.
Yep, so I'm on Twitter at TomGreen52, and the Borough Breakdown is on Twitter at Borough_Breakdown. Also on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube.
So yeah, go check that out. As I said, I will link it in the video below, and on Twitter I will tag them when we do share about this being live. So if you did find this video that way, you should have the links there to go and check out the Borough Breakdown. But yeah, thanks for your time, Tom. Hopefully we'll catch you again later in the season, and good luck for the season. Start or start in the Cup game maybe, which is midweek. But I would love for us to go up there and get a win. But I'm a bit skeptical. I think I'm going to go with a draw myself. But yeah, we'll see. A draw would be a good result, I think, for the first game for anyone.
I've got 0-0 as my prediction. Like I say, I've got no faith that we ever win on the first day.
Yeah, it's just one of them, and just don't lose the game, and you can build from there, especially if you're away. Yeah. So, but yeah, good luck, and yeah, catch you later in the season.
Good luck to you too.
And thanks, thank you very much. Thanks everyone for watching as always, and we shall catch you in the next one. Goodbye for now.